Why did I go to Vietnam? I'm a physician, and I was working for the Committee of Responsibility in Northern California, and one night I got a telephone call, and I was asked to go. They asked 3 of us to go. The committee wanted us to select war-injured children, children who need highly specialized treatment in the United States. John Constable, a plastic surgeon from the Mass General in Boston, came with me. Ted Tapper, a pediatrician from Philadelphia, was the 3rd physician. The committee needed a doctor from the West Coast to go to Vietnam, but there were also personal reasons why I decided to go. I wanted to see Vietnam. I wanted to see the people who live there. As a doctor, I wanted to see what the civilian hospitals are like. I wanted to see how casualties are cared for. Not many American civilians have a chance to see Vietnam. Saigon is everybody's first stop in Vietnam. For me, it was hot, it was smoggy, and it was crowded. Whole families living in the streets. Crowds of children, many of them grabbing our hands and following us for blocks. Some of them trying to sell us their sisters. And the refugees just keep coming. They fill the city. There was a fire last March in one of the slums, and as soon as it was over, the people just rushed right back in order not to lose their little inch of space. And now I saw them living in little open platforms, whole families without any walls around them. If our job was to find, quote, civilian casualties, we had seen enough of one kind already in the streets of Saigon. We were kept busy in Saigon by our State Department and the Vietnamese Ministry of Health. We had 3 or 4 days of endless briefings and ceremonial visits to various ministers and cocktail parties. We were filled with facts and told that Vietnam, like all Asian countries, is ridden with disease and malnutrition, lack of sanitation, and contaminated water. In the dry season, it's cholera. During the monsoons, it's plague. The rats come inside. Rats, plague, cholera, suicides. As doctors, we were lucky to be here, they said. We'd see things we'd never seen before. What did we learn in Saigon? How many civilians killed? Nobody knew. How many civilians injured? We never did get a complete answer. Estimates of 2 civilians killed for every Viet Cong. Estimates of 10 civilians killed for every Viet Cong. Rumors of whole villages lost. The closer we got to this war, the harder it was to really assess what was going on. We traveled from hospital to hospital in South Vietnam, from Da Nang in the north down through the Mekong Delta. We visited 35 out of 46, practically all of the provincial hospitals, except those in the areas of heaviest fighting. The briefings had given us a good idea about in-country programs, about people who were working in Vietnam to alleviate the medical stress. We were told of refugee centers and new life hamlets being built to take care of the homeless. We were glad to hear that someone was helping the people of Vietnam, but we wanted to get out and see what they were doing. It didn't take me long to realize that a hospital here in Vietnam just isn't a hospital as I know it. In Da Nang Surgical Hospital, I picked my way through bodies on the floor. Here was the war. Everything I'd learned as a doctor, that I'd spent my life studying, didn't prepare me for the things that I saw. At first, I checked every patient with an interpreter. What had happened to him? What had been done for him in the hospital? What happened to the rest of his family? What happened to the rest of his village? What happened to the rest of his family? What happened to the rest of his village? I wanted the hospital breakdown. How many patients now? How many last month? How many napalm burns? How many mortar wounds? How many wounded by VC? How many wounded by Allied forces? How many people didn't make it to the hospital? My figures just simply didn't give the whole picture. Here we were counting heads, and we still had no idea of the real number of victims of this war. One hospital might have only a few war-injured people. If we'd been there a few days earlier, we might have found many people injured by VC mines, by napalm bombs, by bomb fragments. The war flares up anywhere, any time, has no front, no rear. No part of the country is safe. General Humphreys told us in Saigon, the population of Vietnam is a floating population, not a refugee population. It moves 5 or 10 kilometers from where things are going on, and it just moves again and again until it finally gets back to where things started. If they're lucky, patients have their families with them to care for them and feed them. In some hospitals, they live there. They sleep right under the beds. wounded arrive sporadically without any warning at all. They come in by bus, on foot. Some come by helicopter, by sampan, by stretcher. Some are even carried in on their own beds. Some take a few hours to get to the hospital. Some take days or weeks. The average was a day or two. By the time they get to the hospital, infection and gangrene are common. Many die on the way of shock. If I were working here, what could I do? Operate without ether or without water for days? Set a compound fracture without the help of X-ray? Finish an operation by flashlight when the electricity goes out in the middle of it? Work without enough nurses? Without enough lab support? With constantly recurring shortages of drugs? What could I do? Cut off whatever limb was infected? As a doctor, I felt helpless in these hospitals. Why are there so many amputees? I guess it's about the only medicine a doctor can practice under such conditions. How can this generation of amputees get artificial limbs? There's only one place in Saigon providing prostheses. More are to be built in Can Tho, Quang Ngai, but these won't fill the need. There are 30,000 amputees in Vietnam today. They hope to be able to repair 500 a month. That'll take 5 years, and there are more every day. I almost got used to seeing all these wounded bodies, and it worried me. At times it seemed our project was a futile effort. But we've got to do something. We could help. We could help at once the children who need help the most. Help with plastic surgery and rehabilitation. We could help the ones who can't possibly be cared for in Vietnam. Perhaps we could enable them to walk, to swallow, to function and live as independent human beings. Maybe we can give their lives back to them. I felt futile, yet invaluable. It's a drop in the bucket, I know, but to the individual children, it's everything. This much I feel. These are some of the children we've selected for treatment in the States. We found Hun Thi Tan in the Bac Lieu Provincial Hospital. She's 11 years old. She was hit by a machine gun. Osteomyelitis has set in. Nothing has been done for her. After the infection has been controlled, she will need complicated bone grafting. We found this 5-year-old girl in the Phan Thiet Hospital. A shell wound to the skull resulted in herniation of the brain. Nothing has been done for her. She needs complicated brain surgery. 10-year-old Nguyen Phang was in Quang Tin Hospital near Da Nang. A bomb burn, napalm or phosphorus, has caused contracture of the neck. Nothing has been done. It is a delicate area to do surgery, but it can be released so that he could swallow again. This 16-year-old boy in the Ma Qua Hospital was blinded and lost both hands from a grenade wound. We can give him artificial hands and teach him how to survive. Tran Van Yen is 12 years old. He came to Can Hung Hospital in 1965, 2 years ago, with a bullet in his spine. It's still there. He is paralyzed from the waist down, but with braces and proper rehabilitation, he can learn to walk.